guys, I am going to talk about a few things that I always get asked. A few of the common questions hunters and clients and guys ask me, and even guides that come in from out of state. Optics is a huge thing. So everybody always asks, what binos should I bring? What binos work best in the West, or what binos are the best in Arizona? Should I bring my spotting scope? Do I need 15s? Do I need a tripod? All these questions I get asked the most frequently when talking about hunting and hunting in the West, not only Arizona, but Mexico, Wyoming, Colorado, Nevada. We all kind of share the same landscape in the same type of country, give or take. Big country, glassing, there's not a whole lot of tree stand hunting. So it really takes your optics up in priority level when you're coming to hunt. It's less about what private land you're getting onto and more about, can you find the animals on public land? That is what Western hunting is really all about. It's about finding big game on public land, which is so different from the Midwest and Texas and the East Coast, because the majority of animals hunted are on private parcels. So I'm just going to go over just my personal setup, and keep in mind I am a professional outfitter, guide in Alaska and in Arizona, and I do this for a living. So I'm just going to kind of go over some things, just my setup, and maybe what you can take to your personal setup. And I'll give an example of different optics that I really recommend for hunters, whether they're first-time hunters in the West, or we'll just kind of go over some of those scenarios. So first thing is first, I'm going to talk about my binos. So me being a guide, and this goes to everyone, I guess, but more specifically when I'm guiding rifle hunters, I have a responsibility to my clients to put them in the best situation possible to harvest a big game animal. And so that being said, I have to have a rangefinder in my binos, to be honest with you. I've used both sets. I've used 10s and 15s and all that stuff. When I started using a rangefinder in my binos, it was a total game changer, because what happens is that I have to keep an eye on the animal. And in this trend of long-range shooting and hunting and the capabilities that our optics and our rifles have now, looking through a 7-power or 6-power Leupold, or even a Leica, which is my favorite rangefinder, or a G7, whatever it is that you're using, but looking through that single eyepiece at 7-power, you can hit any object that you're looking for, you're wanting to shoot at. However, when situations arise, as they do in hunting, and the animal steps up or moves or walks away, or more realistically, the animal gets shot or shot at and changes ranges to a deficit that will affect bullet drops, so say 350 to 450, that's nothing when an animal's running, or 100 yards is nothing. They cover that in seconds. So it became really a responsibility that I put upon myself, that I need to keep track of the animal no matter what happens. So with the rangefinder inside, I can give directions to my hunter, my shooter, my buddy, whatever it is, the whole time, and I'm looking through my 10s, keeping an eye on him. So I'm saying, okay, he's 350, and I can coach somebody into acquiring the target or animal in my binos. I don't have to go, yeah, he's 350, and then go to a spotting scope or go back to my binos and try to figure out where the animal is at, and where in relation to the scope and the shooter. So what the rangefinder in the binos really does, it joins the range and acquiring the target together, and makes everything seamless. And when seconds matter, it's really important. So another common thing that I always try to get myself into that mindset is this. What a rangefinder does This is really kind of a cool thing. A rangefinder binos. So these binos are 10s. These are Leica 10 Geovid HDBs. They're the highest end Leica rangefinding binos you can get. What I like to do is I like to have the hunter, whether you're shooting at 500 yards, 600, 200, 800, I like to get their scope what my binos are at. So give or take. So if he's got a 6 to 24 power scope, for example, I like to put him at 10 or 12 right off the bat. I just get him at 10 or 12 so that we're looking at the same thing. This is something that people don't understand, is that when I'm in a 6 power little tiny rangefinder, I don't have the same frame of reference. And also, when I'm in a spotting scope, I don't have the same reference either as somebody in a rifle scope. And acquiring the target is the hardest thing that you can do in the West and hunting coos deer or hunting elk or whatever it is. So what I like to try to do is I like to coach through my binos, and I know they're seeing the same thing that I am. I know that my client or my buddy, whatever it is, whoever it is looking at the same field of view, more or less, than I have. It may be 12, it may be 8 power, but I know that when I say that big tree that's got a branch hanging down with the white rock, I can and they're gonna see, hey, that's I know that's in their field of view, so they can see it. So that gives me license to yell at them when they're not finding the animal. So to break it down into a realistic thing, if you're coming out hunting in the West for the first time, you don't need to buy a $2,500 pair of binos with a rangefinder inside. If you have the money, it's all about budget. So if you have the money, I would try to get one or the other. So a really good pair of binos. To me, all of the rangefinders, handheld rangefinders, are more or less in the same ballpark. My top choice for the money is the Sig Sauer. So the Sig Sauer, whatever I forget what they're called, 22 kilo or something like that. For the money, that's the best rangefinder you can get, in my opinion. I've used Leupolds and the Leicas and stuff. I think the Leicas are the best, but they're not necessarily for the money. So my recommendation is get the best glass bino you can and the best rangefinder, but the rangefinder is not as important. The glass, your binos are going to find what you're going to shoot. If you need to get closer, then get closer. But the rangefinders up to 1,000 yards are pretty much, I mean, they're all in the same ballpark. And angle compensation and clarity and consistency, honestly, like I said, up to 1,000 yards, give or take, you're going to be in the same ballpark. Now that, I'm saying that in reference to, if you're coming out west to hunt, you're not shooting, and this is kind of your first go-round, this is maybe your first or second time, or you want to really kind of crank it up a notch, you're not going to be shooting anything at 1,000 yards. We're talking 500 yard range and under, because I feel like that is the easiest range for an average hunter with average budget to find the optics, the rifle, everything, to be very successful at 500. That's not a big feat now when you're talking about some of these scopes and rifles that you can get all in for like $1,000 that can really do a lot. And I'm not limiting that to 500 yards, but that's, I mean, typically if you're hunting and you're in the right situation, most of the time you can get within 500 yards. Here is another thing that guys really don't understand when they're talking about 10 powers. So a big question I get is, do I need 15s? These are Zeiss 15s. These are what I like to, they're Zeiss Conquest HDs. They're not the highest end binos by any means. And actually Swarovski and Zeiss make a range finding bino that's more expensive and considered by some to be very superior. I will say Swarovski has better glass than these Leicas, but to me, it's the little things that matter. This has a range finding, the button is on my right hand, and as a right-handed hunter, shooter, everything. And I use these for bow hunting. So that's kind of one of the deals is it's on my right hand, and I like the Leica. I don't know what you call it, the range finding reticle, I guess you could call it. It's just better in my. I just like looking through it. I don't think they're superior to the Swarovskis. I just prefer certain things, despite having a little less glass quality. I prefer the whole package better than the Swarovski. So back to 15s. So I get a lot of questions about 15s. Do I need 15s? That just depends. What I really don't like is the idea, and I have a lot of friends that still do this and do this a lot, and I get this question same a lot, is they have their 10 powers that they wear on their chest, they pack their 15s, and then they have a spotting scope. That is a lot of weight. No matter what brand you buy of 15s, it's going to be heavy. I don't like the idea of anything extra, especially to pack, especially for mountain hunting, especially for backcountry hunting. My number one recommendation for anybody who asks is that get a nice pair of 10s, clean, whatever you can afford. You can get a really quality pair of 10s for $500 bucks. So Vortex Viper 10s are a fantastic place to start. Viper HDs, fantastic place to start. Leupold Mojaves, great pair of binos. What else? There's some Zeiss Conquests that are, you know, anytime you step up. So Vortex has got the razors and it just goes up from there. But I think for $500 bucks, even some Nikon, what are they called? Not Pro Staffs, but the Monarchs are not bad. I mean, if you're talking about 10s, they're not bad. So my number one recommendation is, if this is your first or like I said before, first time, or you're really looking to ramp up your Western hunting game, you're starting to apply for different states, bypass the 15s. And this comes from experience over the years of, I had every combination of glass that you can imagine. Bypass the 15s, go a nice pair of 10s, and put the money that you would have paid for some 15s into a spotting scope. With a good pair of 10s and a spotting scope, you can, it's my opinion that you can hunt anywhere in the world. And you'll be successful anywhere in the world. What are the advantages of 15s? Okay, I love 15s. The advantages of 15s are you don't waste time messing with your spotting scope. So you can identify things clearer, easier right away. You can glass farther away and be very comfortable. There's no comparison between the 10s and 15s at a mile or 2 miles. There just isn't. You're gonna see more clearer with 15s. That's just the bottom line. I don't care how good your 10s are. You cannot make up for power by buying better glass. The best pair of 10s that you can possibly buy, Swarovski, whatever, what are they? Swarovski, Swarovision 10, ELs, the best thing. They still will not compete with a pair of 15s at half that price at distance. You just can't. And I put them side by side. So don't think you're going to make up for glassing far with a better pair of 10s. That being said, you know, obviously 10s have their advantages too. They're light and you can be mobile. And if you have a spotting scope, you can kind of bridge that gap. If you're really set and you know you're going to be glassing big country for long periods of time and you need to identify things, that's the biggest thing. If you, when I mentioned that you don't waste time, if you catch something with a pair of 15s at a mile away, there's a good chance you're going to see if it's a bull, if it's a bull that you want to put a spotting scope on, or if it's a spike or raghorn, a cow. Like, you're going to be able to tell, typically, depending on obviously the environment, situation, if it's raining, whatever. You're going to be able to tell if you want to put a scope on it. With 10s, you'll be able to pick up an animal, see what it's like. You might be able to catch a glimpse of some horns, but you're going to be like, dude, I got to get a scope on this. I can't really tell. With Coues deer, it's a big deal. So when you're Coues deer hunting, their antlers are so small that every little advantage counts and timing counts. That time you waste from, you know, getting your stuff out, your binos, you're putting your scope back on it. That time is really precious in coos, and that's why they're really popular with coos hunters, is because you learn to rely on glass so much hunting the little coos deer that every little bit of glass counts, and time counts when you're in that golden hour, which is like sun up or sundown, and you don't want to waste time fiddling with your scope. So 15s are a big deal. It really depends, like I said, kind of on what you're hunting and where you're hunting, if you need them or not. If you don't mind the extra weight, if you don't mind throwing them in your backpack, if you don't mind all that stuff, I think they're great. They have their place. They always will. Coos deer hunting kind of bridge that gap. It kind of opened the door for 15s and tripods and all that stuff to kind of come on the mainstream market with mule deer hunters and things like that. High country stuff. So that is an option. I do like them. I just want to be clear, you do not have to have them to be successful hunting coos deer, hunting anything in the West. You do not have to have 15s. They are an advantage, and just like everything, they have their place. They have exactly what I would do, honestly, and I did this for years. I carried 2 different pairs of 15s on my chest for 5 years. I carried the Leica 15s with the rangefinder on my chest. Huge, big. I got used to it. Everything, you'll get used to it. So one thing I would suggest if you're going the 15s route, especially if you're backpack country, that's how I always think of it. Am I going to the back country? Am I going to be living off a jet boil? Does weight matter? Yes. So if you're going to go 15s and a tripod, leave the 10s at home, put the 15s on your chest if you can handle it. But trust me, you'll get used to it. Get a big bino carrier. I know KUIU and all these, they make big bino harnesses. It's all good. Leave the 10s at home, just keep the 15s, and then have a rangefinder close. That would be my suggestion. You're gonna have to get used to some things, but it goes for everything. When you're out west, you're hunting big country. I have mule deer hunting in Nevada or Arizona, or coos deer hunting in Arizona. That's what I'm referencing here. I'm not necessarily referencing your like Wyoming, Colorado elk hunting, where 15s are valuable, but you can hunt them with 10s. I mean, you're more in situations where you're coming in and out of timber, where 15s are a little bit tricky when you're in timber. You'd want more 10s that you can roll in timber, you can glass in timber, and then get up high on ridges, and you can still be very effective with 10s on a tripod in elk country where there's timber and that kind of stuff. So it kind of depends on what you're hunting, but either way, just you play with it, but just know that, you know, in my opinion, a spotting scope is more valuable if you're going to sacrifice one or the other. I would hold the 10s off and buy a better spotting scope. The reason being is spotting scope is determine your effort output. So you find something with your 10s or your 15s. So if you're glassing off a tripod with your 15s and you pick something up, you're still going to have to go, and you can't recognize it, you're still going to have to go to your spotting scope. So it all goes to the same spot anyway, whether you're glassing for 10s or 15s, for the most part. So the money should be in your spotting scope, and whatever you're putting on a tripod. But the deal is that you need to identify if there's something 2 miles away, and it's going to can determine your hunt. You know, it could be the last day, and you've got something 2 miles away here. You're going to want to identify, is this worth it to go after, or what is it? What am I going to spend all my energy and effort on? This is the Swarovski 85 with the BTX dual eyepiece on it. I have it here. You can see it's got the extender on it, which makes it like 50 something power. This is like a fixed, I think it's 30 or 35 power on the BTX. And then it's a 1.7 doubler, so it's basically like 60 power. And then with the 85 objective, I've had the 95, and I prefer the 85 a little bit better. It's a lot lighter, and it's, believe it or not, it's a little bit brighter. So, and that's a whole different conversation when you start. The bottom line is that I spend a lot of time on the scope, and I need to identify things and determine whether it's worth someone's entire hunt to make a decision and go after a certain animal or a certain situation. Do you need a Swarovski spotting scope? Do you need all that? I will tell you right now, the difference in Swarovski and Vortex and Leupold and what are the other ones? Like Zeiss, Maven, Bushnell. Okay, here's the big difference. So you have the Euro, the top 3 Euro. You've got Swarovski, you've got Zeiss, you've got Leica. And then you have like the second tier of like Vortex razors. You know, Leupold's got their high end. Leupold's kind of like in that middle groundish still too, because their high end scope is nice, and it is expensive. I wouldn't put it with the Euro ones though, to be honest. But you go to that second tier where it's like Vortex, Maven, Leupold, all these things. You know, there's a bunch of companies that make mid-range. We're talking like $1,000, $1,500 spotting scopes. The number one difference that I noticed, because I've used all of them, and I've carried them personally throughout, you know, my guiding career and stuff, is edges are a huge thing. You heard people talk about edges, edge clarity, but digiscoping and brightness. So the reason that I have to have a Swarovski or the highest end scope is because I do a lot of filming too. So I do a lot of filming in low light and in digiscoping from my spotting scope, and there is a very clear difference between a Vortex Razor and a Swarovski HD spotting scope when you put a camera on the spotting scope. Does that necessarily matter if you're hunting and you want to get some decent footage of your personal hunt? No, it doesn't matter, in my opinion. Does it matter when you're identifying game? Not really. Honestly, you're going to see and identify the same things with a Vortex Razor HD than you will a Swarovski, ATX, BTX, whatever. They're top of the line. You're going to see the same stuff. You're going to see it a little bit better with the Swarovski, but to me, it's not a total game changer. It's a game changer when you put a camera on those things. And, you know, everyone will talk about light and brightness and all that. It just depends on what you have. Because I used the little Swarovski 65 STS HD, or ATS, it's the angled HD, for a long time. The little 65, that sucker's dark. I mean, to be honest with you, it's dark. Compared to anything else. You put a Vortex Razor 85 next to the Swarovski 6, it's darker, man. The Swarovski's going to be darker, so it just depends. You have to compare apples to apples when you're doing this, but in my opinion, the biggest difference in the highest end scope, which is sometimes $2,000 or $3,000 difference, is simply what it looks like on your phone. A little bit brighter, a little bit clearer. And just those kind of little things like that. That's just the difference. Obviously, there's like ergonomics and things like that. But this kind of transitions us into the next phase of the optics conversation. We're going to get into that higher end. So we've got 10s, 15 spotting scopes. All what your budget is, but just know the differences. You know, your $1,000 to $1,500, you're gonna be able to hunt with them. The $3,000 ones, you're gonna be able to hunt and film and take wildlife shots that are just amazing. This next phase is big eyes. So there's several different forms of big eyes out there. This is the latest one that's kind of new on the scene. I have this like wrapped. This is the Swaro, just so you know. It's just wrapped in this stuff because we set everything down on rocks all the time, and they don't really make a decent case for these things, to be honest with you. Swarovski makes one, but it's like $400, and it really doesn't do anything different than this does. There's another case company out there that makes it, but it does not function in any way than like you put this in a backpack or a padded sack. It doesn't have any functional use. I can't have the case on and still use it, and that's a big deal with me. I want the case to be on and still be able to use it. It's timing. You want to keep everything pretty streamlined. So big eyes. This is a big deal when you're talking about looking at game for a long time in between brush. The next form of big eyes is the Koa, the Highlanders. Okay, these are like the original big eyes. There's Doctors too. Doctors are straight, but the Koas are these are 13.5 pounds. I first used those on a sheep hunt in Mexico, and I was like, what the heck, man, those are crazy. But then you start looking with them, and it's just a different league. So the two big differences in the Koas, I'll just leave these like, just so you know. It kind of, again, this has got a case on it. They don't even make a case for these commercially. We just, Ben made this with some padding, like a Z-Rest, if you know what that is. Thermarest Z-Rest. Difference obviously is weight. You'll hear a lot of comparisons between these two with like big Western hunters. Like Jay Scott does a lot of talk about big eyes and optics and things like that. To be completely honest with you, the Koa Highlanders are superior to the BTX in optically speaking. The Highlanders are way brighter. They're way clearer. They may not be way clearer, but they're clearer. They're clearer because they're brighter. It's kind of like this, you know, it has a transverse effect on it. Is that when things are brighter, you can see it clearer. That's just the bottom line. I used the Highlanders for a long time, and then I bought the BTX, and the BTX came out, and I was actually shocked at how dark the BTX was with a 95 objective compared to the Koa Highlanders. That being said, the Highlanders are like 8 pounds heavier, which is a ton of weight. These are 13.5 pounds. You know, it just depends on what your use is for them. I know a lot of guys keep these as their truck pair when they're glassing from, you know, or keep them in their side by side, glass a big country, and then when they leave and they go hunting, they'll take their scope or whatever. So they are heavy, but their uses are, you can't really compare. You can have a 20 power, a 32 power, and a 50 power ocular eyepiece on them, so you can go double 50s, just like the Swarovski, double 50s or double 30s or double 20s. So it really, these are the best. The Koas are the best, and for that reason, like I said, for optics wise, for clarity, they take up so much space in your backpack. They're so heavy that in the end, most applications for these are to be left close to a vehicle, or close to where you're going to be camping or whatever. You know, like I said, I a lot of my good buddies and outfitter friends that guide sheep or the Arizona Strip, they still prefer the Koa Highlanders because their quality, because of the brightness, and because they're easy to use. The Swarovski BTX kind of bridges that little gap between, it's not outrageously heavy, but you can still use two eyes, and it kind of does everything. It's not, you know, it's good enough to where it can replace the Koas in your backpack. It did for me, but I'd have no problem right now if I had to go back to the Koas. Like, it doesn't matter. Tripod. So what a lot of people don't get, and the misconception is this, is that I only need a tripod for 15s to glass them, or I put my 15s on my tripod and leave my 10s on my chest, or they get a little crappy tripod just for a spotting scope that's like 6 inches high and they never use it. You will see, I guarantee you will see 100% more game when you put your pair of 10 powers on a tripod. I've used 15 powers on my chest a lot. That's another misconception. People say, oh, to have 15s, you have to have a tripod. That's not true. You get the 15s dialed in your eyes right, and it doesn't need to be the most expensive. You can get a pair of Viper 15s, And when you get used to carrying 15s around your chest, you don't need them on a tripod. It's not any more shaky. The difference is that whatever you put on a tripod, you will see more game. That's just it. And if you don't believe me, try it. Try it, because from the very first time I started using a tripod, and this was 15 years ago, you just see more game. I actually started using shooting sticks. Never used them for shooting. I used them to put binos on, and that totally changed the game. And me and my buddies were like, whoa, this is crazy, man. You bring your shooting sticks, and then it just evolved into tripods. Don't get comfortable with your 10s, because you're not gonna glass. One thing I don't like is glassing with a spotting scope. You can do it. It is not efficient. Both your eyes working together out of 10s, and one of your eyes straining versus one of your eyes straining through a 60 power spotting scope it's not good. You have a lot of strain on your eyes, a lot of fatigue going on. Rely on your 10s, but rely on your 10s on a tripod. Don't get comfortable just throwing up your glass and glassing and say, oh yeah, nothing else here, I'm gonna go to the next ridge. Or this, oh man, I just can't glass out, I don't have 15s, it's too far. See what happens. Sit down, glass that country that's a mile away, but don't use a loose rest. Put it on a tripod. See what happens. I guarantee you're gonna see double the amount of game, 100% more. It's double. Especially when you're talking about elk. I mean, especially elk moving in thick country, you need to be stable. What you don't realize is when you're hand holding them or using a rest or whatever it is that there's a micro shake that is in your pulse just by being alive. There's a micro shake that causes a micro blur that doesn't allow you to decipher the edges, especially when you're talking about long distances, a mile into trees and cutting through brush and things like that. There's a micro shake that doesn't allow you to pick up certain movement or colors, which is a huge thing when you're not on a tripod. And you really notice the difference when you switch over. So to put binos on a tripod, if you have a pair of range finding binos, typically you're not going to be able to put your normal tripod. You can kind of see the diagram. This is my favorite tripod adapter, bino adapter for a tripod. It just fits right up in here. So normally every pair of binos, except like I just have, like these guys, they don't have it because it's got the range finding deal. It's got an adjustment or an adapter right here. And Zeiss actually gave me one too. You can tell I haven't got these out yet. I haven't used them much, but this is just same thing. Goes in the thing and locks down. Everybody's got a different brand. They're all about the same. I personally, this is my favorite. You can see this knob right here. It's really makes it really easy to tighten and re-loosen and things like that when you're in the field. So the Vanguard, I think they still sell it. It's a BA 185. It's my favorite when I was using it. So, and as far as tripods go, you know, what I use right now is, I spray paint everything just to kind of take the glare off of, in parentheses, to be cool and make myself look cool. Anyway, this is the Manfrotto. I think it's like it's a CX. It's like the 55 CX, or it's like, I think it's the 290 CX, which means carbon. It's just the carbon one, but it's not very expensive. And relatively speaking, tripods can get out of control expensive into around $1,000. So this one, I want to say is around like 250, 275. And then I have the Manfrotto head on it, which is a 500 AH head. It's a heavy head. It's a really heavy head. So, but it's super smooth. When you're using something for a long time, you really notice the difference in smoothness. You don't have to start here. You know, this tripod probably totals around $500. That may sound crazy, but when you use it as much as we do, or as much as you will on a 10-day hunt in Wyoming, things become more important, and you spend money on, you know, what you start to prioritize more. So this is kind of where I'm at. It's what I would consider is upper mid-range tripod. Nothing crazy. It's not, like I said, it can go out way higher than that, but it's a baseline for us that we like to use, and it works well. Stays, you know, keeps it pretty light. This head is really heavy. I like the RC2 heads. I also like the ball heads. I'm not a big ball head guy. When you're glassing, a ball head is just a free flowing. I don't really like it. I like to grid, so that's why I have this. I really like these long arms, me personally, because I can sit far away and I can just kind of glass, and it doesn't take a lot of effort. You know, when you have a head that you're using, and you can sit with your hands on your knees, and you just kind of, whereas the ball head, you can start getting back into that micro shake like I was talking about. Because if your hands are always on it and it's cold or whatever it is, it's hot, doesn't need, you can get some micro shake going on. So that's just my personal preference. Everybody's got their own thing, and you'll understand what you like. My suggestion is that you start out with a tripod that has adjustable legs, that doesn't have a fixed leg system. That's my number one thing. A lot of the cheap tripods are fixed right here. You don't want that, because you're going to be in weird situations. You're not going to be on pavement. You're not going to be on concrete like those tripods are for. You're going to be in weird situations where you're going to have unlevel areas. You're going to need to sit and crouch, and just give yourself more of an option. I know, and many companies are making them with adjustments like that. Usually look for that. You know, it's an adjustment deal. Vanguard tripods, great place to start for adjustments, and they have actually pretty nice heads and things like that come with their package. So I highly recommend that Vanguard tripod, S-Pod or something like that. Good place to start. Most everything is covered by what's your budget. So in my opinion, if you're going to start out, you know, stick within the Vortex, get their Viper line, Viper HD line, or if you can afford it, go the Razor HD line. Really quality stuff. I mean, it's good stuff. I don't give a crap about the warranty. I mean, I do, but if we're talking strictly optics, it's good to buy things with a warranty, and every optics company now has about the same warranty. So it's like, you know, if we're talking strictly hunting, Vortex, their glass to me is very competitive as the best mid-range glass out there. And yes, they do have an awesome warranty, but that's not gonna, that doesn't preface the conversation as what has the best warranty. Leica has the worst warranty. Like these, you want to talk about terrible customer service, Leica is probably the worst customer service that you can ever encounter. And I still buy them just because the pros outweigh the cons, because to me, I like them the best despite their awful customer service. So hopefully that will change, or some other company will make something better so that I will have good customer service. Swarovski's pretty good customer service. Zeiss, they're all pretty good. I would say the best are Leupold and Vortex. You know, Nikon isn't too bad, but Nikon's like a giant company. They sell like hundreds of thousands of cameras, and I mean every electronic thing. So the like attention to detail and the personalized experience, you're not going to get that. Vortex is Leupold. They're just for hunters and law enforcement, military. So they don't sell all that stuff to everywhere across the world. Other than that, you pretty much have the three tiers. It's, you know, the Vortex, Leupold, and then you have like the second tier, which is like, you know, your lower range Zeiss, upper range Vortex like Razor, where they're BINOS and they're spotting scopes are in that $1,500 to $2,000 range, like the Conquest. Zeiss started making like a mid-level pair, just like I have right here. This is kind of a mid-level pair that, you know, is made a little bit more budget friendly compared to the Swarovski, which is, you know, $2,500 for some 15s. So you have that gap. So then you have the second tier of Zeiss, upper end Vortex, upper end Maven, upper end Leupold, where you're getting that stuff. And then your third tier is like the highest end Swarovski, Leica, and their higher models, or HD new stuff. It's all what you can afford, and it's really what you have to do is prioritize what's important to you and try to do research. But the problem with research is everybody's got their own opinion, and not everyone's in your situation. They're not your age. They're not hunting the same game in the same state, in the same environment, with the same people, you know. So it all differs, you know, what you want to do and what you're looking to do. To me, if I'm bow hunting, this whole conversation changes. If I'm bow hunting, I am really streamlining what I'm taking, because me as a bow hunter, I'm a lot less trophy oriented than is if I have a rifle in my hand. So I would really roll with just 10s and a scope, maybe sometimes not even a scope. Like there's a lot of times when I'm bow hunting, I leave my $5,000 scope at home and I roll with just my 10s, because I know if I got a bow in my hand, I already know what I'm looking for. And most of the time, I'm not like breaking stuff down to the inch. I'm saying that's a mature animal. He's got a mature frame. I'm going after him. And I got my bow, you know. But if I have a rifle in my hand, it really becomes more of a shopping sort of experience where you're really picking over a lot of game. You're really just looking for one specific animal, and it is down to inches in most cases. So all depends on what you want to do. I hope this helped. I'm sorry that I only have just like the highest end optics, some of the highest end optics on the market just to view, but that's my personal setup. I do this for a living. It's my profession. And if you come out hunting with a professional, you expect them to have the best equipment. So that's kind of where I'm at. But as someone who just, like I said, wants to get started with it, wants to really upgrade their game, their Western hunting game, or, you know, backcountry hunting game, it's good to know what's the best bang for your buck and really what you need. Because the very first things you buy are what you need, and what you upgrade should be what you need to upgrade. So, you know, that's kind of my opinion. My overall thoughts are, if you want to take that next step, put your money into your 10 power binos, or put your money into buying a 10 power bino rangefinder combo and a spotting scope. If you have extra money after that, buy a pair of 15s. If you have extra money after that, then buy big eyes. You know, the one thing is with the Swarovski, if you do spend the money and buy their scope, you kind of have it. You can upgrade and you can kind of really do the modular thing, because this scope is modular. I can use this as a single eyepiece scope at 70 power, or I can use it as a double eyepiece. You know, all that kind of stuff. So a modular, we always like modular stuff just because you can have more stuff, and more attachments and more stuff to buy. But I hope my little optics conversation helps in any way or sheds light. It's you know, it's a passion. It's what I do for a living, and I've had experience with almost every optic brand and model you can think of, one way or the other. And if you have any questions or comments or whatever, hit me up. And look forward to having another conversation about it later on. Maybe talking about bow hunting optics specifically, because things do change. And yeah, look forward to posting another video at sometime soon. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.